Guys, I'm sorry. I see my first guest on the line. And, guys, I appreciate it. Please stay on the line. I got to pick up my guest. Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Carl. Guys, I'll put you on hold.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys. Guys, I see my first guest on the line, and I am pumped up for this guy. I'm going to play a little solo from the great Dom Famularo and then pick him up.
And now back to Around the Kit with Joe Gansas.
Guys, it gives me great pleasure to welcome to Around the Kit the legend, Mr. Dom Famularo. Dom, Joe Gansas, Around the Kit. How are you, sir?
Joe, I am doing wonderful. Well, I'll tell you something. That solo sure had me playing Around the Kit. That's for sure.
Well, I'll let you know, Dom. That was from 2010, the 4th Dresdner Drum Festival. Does that ring a bell?
And where was that? In Dresdner?
It says the 4th Dresdner Drum Festival, 2010.
Yeah, I think that's in Germany. It's a wonderful festival in Germany, and Dresdner is a wonderful city. And I don't exactly remember that performance, but I do remember the Dresdner festivals. And actually, I'm going back again this September for their, I think it's going to be their 15th festival, 15th year, something like that, yeah.
Well, Dom, from me to you, to a drummer, to a drummer, to a man, welcome to Around the Kit, brother.
Boy, Joe, thank you so much. I think what you're doing is absolutely wonderful. You're reaching so many people and inspiring them about drumming, which is exactly what I love doing, and it's just so great to see you doing it so well. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I had goosebumps all week because, as the interviewers, we always want to ask those different questions, and I find myself, if I'm in the shower, Dom, I'll be talking to Dom Famularo, and I'll be answering how I think you're going to answer. So it's cool to have these kind of things going through your head. It's all good, and we welcome you. Dom, I want to go back a little bit because I know you're playing, my God, 50-something years, if I'm correct. I think you started playing
Absolutely.
in like 64, right? You were 11 years old. Explain to me how you start playing at 11 and you become professional at 12.
Well, the first thing, Joe, I would have to say is if you're thinking about me in the shower, you got some serious problems ahead of you, brother. That's the first thing, all right? Let's just start there, okay?
Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody.
Joe, that's actually a fun question because I started, I was one of those guys, like many guys, who in 1964 heard the Beatles play on the Ed Sullivan Show. The Ed Sullivan Show was a Sunday night, 9 o'clock, kind of a variety show. And when the Beatles hit that show at that time in 1964, we just sat in front of that TV and we were amazed at the excitement and the fun. I saw Ringo playing and I said to myself, that's what I want to be doing. I was sitting with my two brothers and they ended up taking guitar and bass. So me playing drums, we started out immediately with a band and we were off and running.
Absolutely, and it's just amazing. Let's stay there for a second, Tom. How Ringo, so many of my guests, a good friend of yours, my guest last week, the great Kenny Aronoff, he said the same thing. He said it was Ringo Starr that did it. So, Dom, if you can, in one word, because I know you like to talk like me, in one word, what is Ringo Starr in one word?
In one word, I'd probably have to say enthusiasm.
Great.
It really was. He was so enthusiastic when he played drums, and he was so into all the parts that he played. And that enthusiasm just kind of, when you see someone who's enthusiastic about what they're doing and they're living their passion, it kind of sucks you in. Mm-hmm. And that's really what Ringo and the Beatles did to us. He just kind of sucked us in. And Kenny, who was an extremely dear friend of mine, who I've known for probably close to 40 years, it's the same feeling. And there are many guys like that. Greg Bissonette, Mark Schulman, David Garibaldi, so many guys that kind of felt the same thing.
Absolutely. And I think it's just a testament of that time, what was going on, and your childhood, and how he left this statement in your mind. Guys, we're talking to the legend himself, Don Famularo. He's been so nice to give us some time. And Don, talk to me about some of the guys. Well, you know everybody and their mother in drumming, so if I mention names, I'd be here till Christmas. Jim Chapin, Joe Morello, Al Mueller, Charlie Perry, Shelley Maine. You studied with them. Give me some insight of what are some of the same features that they all brought to the table and showed you.
Joe, but that's actually another great question, Joe, and my compliments to you, because these guys, when you go back and look at who these guys were and what they did in the drumming industry, they had such a strong passion and an excitement about playing drums, and they were excited all the time. So when you meet somebody who's excited about what they do, you can't help but get sucked into that excitement. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, we start with a guy like Jim Chapin. I mean, Jim Chapin was always incredibly into playing drums, to the fact that on his deathbed, at the age of 89, he was 2 weeks shy of his 90th birthday. And I fly down to Florida where he was, and I would go down once a week to see him. And it was about 2 or 3 days before he passed away, and I go down there, and I enter the hospital, and the doctor knew I was coming in, and he met me at the entrance of the hospital. He said, Mr. Famularo, just so you know, Mr. Chapin's not really doing that well, and he's really dehydrated, and we're trying to keep him hydrated, but it's just not good. I said, boy, Doc, thanks so much. Let's go to the room, I said. So we're walking up to the room, and as we're getting closer to the room, I hear some incredible drum pad playing.
Oh, my God.
Someone's in the room playing the drum pad, like, ferociously, Joe. I don't mean just like tapping it. So I said to the doctor, I said, boy, there must be, one of Jim's students here playing. Well, this will be great. We'll go and see what's happening. The two of us walk into the room, and there's Jim sitting up in his bed with a practice pad on his lap, wailing away.
Wow.
Wailing away. Now, I don't mean playing, good for a 20-year-old. I mean playing incredible at the top of his technique, wailing away. And he's got MTV at the time. He had a music video on the TV while he's playing along to it. He's watching it, and he's playing along to the band. And the doctor looks at me, and I said, this is the guy that's only got a few days left. You got to be crazy.
Oh, wow.
He was playing. So his desire. So I walked over and I said, Jim, what are you doing? He said, Dom, I'm practicing.
Oh, my God.
And he goes, and I'm starting to feel even more improvement in my left hand. This was July 2nd. I talk to him. I hang out with him the entire day. I give him a kiss. I say goodbye. I say, Jim, I love you. I fly back home. I get a call in the morning of July 4th that Jim had passed away. So those,
Dom,
that's what these guys had.
Yeah. If I can say this, and I know there might be guys who are better than him or not as good as him or whatever, but maybe some of the best hands I've ever seen in my life, and I mean naturally. I mean, when I watched Jim Chapin, I used to watch him in videos, and just his arms wouldn't move, but his wrists would be going, just the true definition of the epitome of a drummer. And just a great drummer, one of the great drummers we lost, oh, my God, so many years. And we are happy that you are with us tonight and still going strong, and we hope you go on forever, because I love you, Dom, and I love what you do. You talk drums, and you're passionate, and I'm only 47. I've been playing drums 34 years, but when I watch you, something rubs off. It really does. I'm not blowing smoke now. And I say, that's something that I would like to do. Here's a guy who really must enjoy what he does. Is that true?
Well, Joe, thank you so much, and that is true. I'm 62 years young.
Wow.
And I say it that way because I'm still having great fun. I just got back from Nashville, Tennessee a couple of days ago. I was at the National Association for Music Educators Conference, and I was there performing and lecturing. I'm home for a couple of days. I leave Tuesday for the Ukraine to perform there for 4 days. I fly back home. I'm only home for a couple of days, then I'm off to Nashville again to perform with a 9-piece band at B.B. King's in Nashville to honor a dear friend of ours, Joe Hibbs, a great drummer that was involved with Mapex Drums as their artist relations guy who passed away in February. We're doing a wonderful memorial for him. So all these things are going on. It's very, very exciting. I fly back from that performance of the memorial on May 1st, and May 2nd I fly to Hong Kong to perform with Dave Weckl at a huge festival in China. So this pace that I'm on, it's exciting. It keeps me young, and there is passion every day. And I love it. I love learning the instrument. I'm constantly going through drum books and asking questions and watching internet videos of what's happening. So it's extremely exciting to continue to learn. And I think that's part of the excitement that I learned from Morello and Al Miller and Charlie Perry and Shelley Mann and Henry Adler. My gosh, these guys were so deep into learning all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
Absolutely.
Louis Belson called me about a week before he passed away. And he calls me up and he goes, Dom. He says, Louis, it's Louis Belson. And of course, when I heard his voice and he said Louis, I knew exactly who it was. But he always had to clarify it. It's Louis Belson. So I said, oh, Louis. I said, my gosh, great to hear from him. He goes, Dom, listen, with your feet, when you're playing at a high speed, are your heels down or are they up a little bit? I said, gee, Louis, I said, they're kind of up about an inch off the drum, and I'm kind of sliding them side to side, and it's kind of like a sideway molar feel that I talked to JoJo about, JoJo Mayer, and we talked about that. It kind of like helps to get the endurance and the speed. He goes, oh, man, that's great, man. Thanks so much, man. I've been watching some video of what you're doing, and it's just really exciting. Thank you so much. A week later, he passed away. So he just sounded so enthusiastic about learning. He's calling me. This is the guy that basically started double bass playing in the world.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's calling me, so I was humbled. He was so honest and sincere about learning. This is the enthusiasm that I want the younger generation to hear
Yes.
and to feel that there's a magic in learning, and as you grow and learn and you get better, you then open the door to inspire someone else.
Guys, we are talking to the tremendous, so many adjectives, verb I could use to talk about this great, great drumming man I love so much. I want to talk about a story in 1971 with Al Miller, and I think you know where I'm going for this. He, how we sometimes talk about life and how, for me, it hasn't been that moment yet in drums. My daughter was born almost 9 years ago, and the minute she was born, that was the game-changing moment so far for me.
Yeah.
So it's my daughter's birth, and nothing come close yet. But in 71, you were studying with Al Miller. I think 5 years. You were becoming one of his best students, and he invited you over for dinner. And if you can, just real fast, give us a little bit about more of that story.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Joe. If someone says to me, like, one of my life game-changing moments, I would absolutely have to say the birth of my 3 children, because as far as life goes, there's nothing better than the miracle of birth.
Right.
And as I see my boys grow up, that are now 17, 19, and 21, and they're into their lives, that every day inspires me greatly. When it goes to a game-changing moment in my career, it was at that point in 1971 that Al Miller says to me, he said, "Don, you're becoming, one of my top students, and I really, want to spend more time with you. So I'd like you to come over to my house, tomorrow night and meet a buddy friend of mine. And I'm just going to barbecue." And I said, boy, I said, Al, that's so nice. Absolutely. So he invites me over. I stop and get a couple of bottles of wine, and on the way going there, I noticed that there was a club called Poor Peter's right around the corner of Al's house, and there was a big sign in front of the club that said, "Tonight, the Buddy Rich Big Band." So I go, oh my gosh, I know Al always talks about how he likes Buddy. I'm going to go and get some tickets. So I go in the place, and I buy 3 tickets, one for me, one for Al, and one for his buddy friend. I go to Al's house. I got a couple of bottles of wine with me. I knock on the door. Al answers the door. I said, "Al, this is great." He goes, "Dom, come on in." I said, "Al, I got a surprise for you." He says, "Oh, that's wonderful. Come on in. I've got a surprise for you, too." I walk in the house. I turn to the right into his living room, and there is Buddy Rich.
Oh my God!
I mean, this is 1971. I mean, this is the king of drumming. I had just seen him on television a couple of nights before on the Johnny Carson show. I had just seen a special he did with Frank Sinatra. It was this guy. It didn't get any bigger in the music industry, or specifically in the drumming industry. So I see Buddy Rich. So immediately I go to shake his hand, and Al says, "Buddy, this is Dom. Dom, this is Buddy." As I'm shaking Buddy's hand, I said to Al, "Al, you said I was going to meet a buddy friend of yours. This is not a buddy. This is the buddy. That's a huge freaking difference." Buddy loved that. He laughed hysterically. We meet. I find out we're sitting down there, and I said, "Guys, how the heck do you guys know each other?" It turned out that both Al and Buddy were in the Marines together and spent 2 years together in the Marines.
Right.
Traveling, and fighting in the war, during World War II, and they got very close together, and they became friends, and eventually just, very, very dear associates. Of course, being Marines, and of course being drummers, that really bonded them together. And after a barbecue at Al's house, Buddy said, "Come on, let's go to the gig." And I totally forgot about the gig. So Buddy had a red Corvette Stingray. He says, "Come on, we'll take my car." So we go in there, and Buddy says to me, "Dom, you get in the back seat." Now, if you know a Corvette Stingray, there is no back seat. Didn't matter, Joe. I climbed in the back. My feet were sticking out the window. I got in the back of that car. Buddy was driving. Al got in the passenger seat. We started driving, and it was just a short distance from the club. And I said, "Gee, guys, I didn't know I was going to meet, Buddy, so I bought 3 tickets to the show." And Buddy leans back to me and says, "Well, how stupid was that? You're going to sit backstage with Al." He said, "Give me the 3 tickets." So I reach in my pocket. I'm kind of, contorted in the back seat. I reach, and I hand Buddy the 3 tickets up front. Buddy pulls in front of the club. There's a lineup of people in the front of the club. He gets out of the car, walks to the last 3 people in line, and says, "I'm going to see you front row center." Gives them the tickets, shakes their hands, Gets back in the car. We drive around backstage. We go backstage. He puts 2 folding chairs on the side of the stage, and that was my first experience to sit that close to Buddy and just be amazed at the intensity and the passion and the enthusiasm that Buddy had. That was just intense all the time.
Wow. And I think, if I'm correct, you've seen him over 200 times live.
Easily, because every time he would come into the East Coast, whether it was anywhere from, I live on Long Island, whether it was on Long Island or in New York or New Jersey or Connecticut or Boston, Al would give me a call and say, come on, we're going to go see Buddy. You know, and I said, absolutely. So we'd hop in the car and we'd go and see Buddy. And we had many times to sit down with him. We had a lot of dinners together. We had a lot of hangout sessions afterwards in the bus. And I really got to see the greatness. And when you meet someone like Buddy, it's kind of interesting backstage because you meet 3 different levels of musicians. First, you meet all the great drummers. All the great drummers like Shelly Manne, Max Roach, Steve Gadd, and my gosh, Papa Joe Jones, Philly Joe Jones, Elvin Jones, you know, Carl Palmer. Everybody was always up backstage at a Buddy show. Then the second kind of people you meet are the great legendary band leaders. I met Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Benny Goodman. I mean, all these great guys that would be backstage, and I'm just kind of sitting there with Al Miller, and Duke Ellington would walk by and sit next to me, and I'd shake his hand, and we'd talk for a couple of minutes. It was just so powerful to experience that camaraderie of musicians. Right. And the third level that you met were the Rat Pack, the Sinatra. It was only Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop, Peter Lawford, Dean Martin, all these guys at different shows. We went to a show in New Jersey, and it was a high school that Buddy was playing in New Jersey. And Sinatra pulls up with Dean Martin and you know, driven in a limo. They get out, they come backstage. I mean, it just was so surreal. One show, Jerry Lewis came, and I found out that Jerry Lewis was Buddy Rich's daughter's godfather. So Kathy Rich's godfather is Jerry Lewis. So you just got to meet this, and every one of those people that I met were all humble, down-to-earth, dedicated musicians. And every time they came in, they all hugged each other. It was an incredible thing to witness.
Just thank you for that story. That's a legendary story. Guys, we're talking to the great Dom Famularo, and his stories are legendary. He's a legend. Dom, I got a question for you because you've been around and you've seen the progression and the growth with drums. Do you think drums today that we're in good hands? And what I mean, you go back from Louis Bellson to Buddy Rich, to early Carl Palmer, to Ian Pace, early 70s, and now we're talking about 2016, the greats of today, Thomas Lang, Virgil Donati, and guys like Jojo Maya. Do you think we're in a good space right now? Do you think drums are in a good hand?
Well, that's actually a really great question, Joe, because that really is, it's always a concern of mine. And then I'm always inspired at the same time. So I get concerned and inspired. You mentioned guys like Thomas Lang. Thomas Lang was 17 years old when he heard me do a clinic in Vienna, Austria. He came up to me, asked me questions about how I was able to get my feet so clean with flams and different patterns I was playing in double stroke rolls. I mentioned I went through the book Stick Control with my feet. Next thing you know, Thomas put the time into it, and look what he's developed.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Virgil Donati, I met Virgil, my gosh, 30-plus years ago in Australia when I heard him perform, and I walked up to him and said, my gosh, Virgil. He came up to me and had asked me, Tom, could you stop and listen to my performance? I said, absolutely. He got me a chair in the front row. After I heard him, I said, Virgil, what the hell are you doing in Australia? He said, well, Dom, I live here. I said, I know you live here, but what the hell are you doing here? I said, you got to get to America. You know, we got to get your name out. He goes, you think so? I said, absolutely. So I had suggested to move to L.A., which he did, and then he ended up starting to do some clinics in America, and then the rest is history. Virgil Donati. It just doesn't get any deeper of a standard than Virgil Donati. What Virgil does with his hands and his feet and the depth of what he's done with the instrument is awe-inspiring. You mentioned Jojo. I met Jojo when he was 16 years old in Zurich, Switzerland. We sat down. We had some lessons together. I showed him some stuff. Then I said, listen, you got to connect with Jim Chapin for what you're doing to understand more about this Moeller movement. It'll help you out. He did. And then Jojo, I eventually introduced Jojo to Morello. And with that information, it was passed on. what Jojo has done in both of his DVDs. His first DVD about hand technique and his second DVD recently about feet technique is absolutely amazing. And I'm honored that Jojo has mentioned me in both DVDs and makes credit to me in both of them. You know, he called me several times for advice on those two DVDs, and he really did the research. So that next generation is doing the right research to what they're doing. So there are so many great young players out there that are pushing the envelope. There's a great young player, Klaus Hessler in Germany, who is absolutely phenomenal. Klaus, C-L-A-U-S, Hessler, H-E-S-S-L-A-R. Go to KlausHessler.com. Search him on the internet. An absolutely brilliant player. Stephen Chamberlain from Quebec City, Canada, another brilliant player. Joe Bergamini from New Jersey. My gosh, Massimo Russo from Italy. Phenomenal people that are playing and pushing the art form well into the 21st century.
Great. Guys, we're talking to Dom Famularo. Are you also happy with, because I think sometimes we all do this. I do it, you might do it. We try to do too much sometimes behind the kit when it's not necessary, you know, and sometimes it could be the wrong thing to do. If we're playing with a band, it can get us in trouble. But since, you know, the 20s and 30s and 40s till now, I think sometimes that we might forget sometimes what our purpose is behind the set. And it's just maybe to keep the groove and stay in the pocket. And I see some drummers, Dom, that don't give that enough attention. What do you think about that?
Well, another great question, Joe. You know, we are always, as any artist and musician, we are a servant to the music. And that's always the prime focus. When I'm playing with any band I'm playing with, it's all about the music. The song that I've been asked to play at this memorial in 2 weeks for Joe Hibbs, playing the Earth, Wind & Fire song, After the Love.
Okay.
You know, it's After the Love is Gone. And, you know, which is a great slow funk groove playing. Joe Hibbs was into soul and funk music. He loved the Earth, Wind & Fire, so After the Love is Gone is a tune that he liked. I'm playing it with a 9-piece horn band. And I'm going to play a couple fills in the song, but that's about it. It's just an absolute groove song, and that's how the song will be played. So if I'm playing a drum clinic and I'm asked to play a solo, then I can unleash and express myself in a different way. But it's always about the music. And, you know, a part of it is a level of maturity. And that's really what it comes down to. You can tell someone if they're mature enough, they play exactly what is made and required for the song. And probably the master at that is Steve Gadd.
Oh, my God.
Steve who literally just last week turned 71 years young.
Yes.
And I met Steve back in 77, 78 when I first met Steve Gadd. And he has always consistently played every song live or recorded, all about music. And he always plays exactly what's right. So it really is about the music. And the younger generation needs to go through this sometimes this sense of immaturity that they think it's about them. It's not. It's about the music, and it's about how the band feels. I always say when I'm playing, I always ask the musicians, how do you feel? How do you want this to be laid down? How do you want to play it? I always ask them what they want from me and what they want, and I try to give everybody that solid groove, so we play the song the way it is. Now, if in that song I'm asked to solo, that's a different story. If I'm asked to solo, then I'm going to solo. I'm still going to play for the song, but I'm going to solo within the context of the song and express myself like any other soloist would.
Yes, my whole point to that question, and that was a great answer by you, because I think in life, and not only in drums, Dom, and you talk about life in a lot of your clinics and stuff, not just drums, you're a great ambassador, and every time you open your mouth, I am a follower, and I just want to say thank you to that. But my whole point to that question was something your mother said. She said, you have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen more than you talk. And I'm guilty of that. I'm sure you're guilty of that. We do it too much. Somebody will, I'll ask Dom Famularo a question, and while he's answering me, I didn't do it tonight, but people interrupt. They always want to think they know everything. Oh, I know this, and let the guy talk. And I come up with these 3 words, and let me know what you think about this. It's called listen, learn, lead. If you listen to a Dom Famularo, you could eventually learn something, and if you get good enough, you'll lead to show others. So listen, learn, lead, and I wanted to get your take on that, how we don't listen enough in life.
Boy, that's great, Joe. The listen, learn, and lead is absolutely beautiful. And, it really is that. I read a lot. I listen to audio books and stuff. I'm constantly going to lectures and listening to people. And listening really is the key to learn. When we're speaking, we're not learning. We're only giving out what we already know. So the listening process is such a big part of being able to step into that world of wisdom. Now, wisdom is the combination of knowledge and experience. You see, knowledge alone doesn't usually give anybody wisdom. Experience is when you put that knowledge into action. So when you combine both that knowledge and experience, that's where someone becomes wise, and that's really where listening is a key aspect of being able to absorb, take it in, and then have something much more poignant and important to say.
Dom, I have no idea about this, but I'm getting a sense. Were your parents strict?
They were strict in the way that we had to understand and always keep focused respect. And they were very, very, firm about respect. We had to respect each other. We had to respect our home. We had to, of course, respect our family. We had to respect things that we owned, our car, whatever it was. We had to show respect. And that was a very important part that my parents had said. And my parents also taught us compassion. You have to feel what other people are feeling. Be sensitive to other people. And in our household, typical Italians, and Joe, we would, on a Sunday afternoon, everybody would come to our house. My mother would cook for an army, and all of the musicians that we had come over our house would come over our house on Sunday. So we had every ethnic race that you could possibly imagine, and every probably religion. I mean, we literally had Jews and Muslims and Christians and Protestants around the table. We had blacks, and we had Asian people. We had, it was just incredible what we had. My Puerto Rican friends would come by. All the musicians that we worked together, music was our language. It had nothing to do about skin color or religion.
Right.
It had to do with we're serving the music. So when we got together at our house, my parents would cook, and my parents just wanted to see us all playing music together. So they kind of empowered us to bring different cultures in and to bring different people into our lives and allow them. And they'd cook, and we'd play music, and then my mother would make a great dessert, and we'd talk, and we'd put music on to listen to it, and we'd play music and dance, and it was always a party every Sunday. And that just became normal in our household. That's pretty powerful. I always say my parents never taught us love, Joe. They never taught us love because they were too busy showing us.
Great. That's a great statement, Dom. My God. Guys, we're talking to the Dom Famularo. He's been so gracious to give us some time, and I appreciate it. Dom, can a Dom Famularo, I know I can you learn something from a drummer who's playing 1 year or 50 years? Can you learn something from him?
Well, great question, Joe, and the answer is unequivocally absolutely yes. Absolutely yes, because what we're learning is not just so much what a drummer is playing, but how they're playing it. And many times a beginner who's just starting out has a certain level of enthusiasm, and they've got a certain level of just excitement. And even though they don't kind of know that they're playing maybe some techniques that might not be that well, or they might be playing with a lot of tension, and the groove might not be that great, their enthusiasm and their passion pulls them through, and that's something which I might take from them. And they might play something in an unorthodox way, and I like that.
Right,
because
right.
there's two very important rules. Rule number one, there are no rules. And rule number two, follow rule one. Once you get that, Joe, then you're up and running. So sometimes someone who has very little experience has a raw sense that is natural, it's nature speaking, and you got to reach into their soul and you can absolutely learn something, as you can every time I go to hear someone like Vinny Colaiuta or Steve Smith play. I steal from them all the time, too.
Yeah, sure. Guys, we're talking to Don Famularo. Don, you are probably, and you've been voted the best clinician in the world several times. I'm not sure how many times, but you've been awarded that. You are probably the best guy I've seen at clinics, not because of your tremendous playing. And I think sometimes, Dom, your playing gets overlooked. If I'm being honest, your playing is just world class. And then when you speak, it's even better. But your playing is just tremendous and just awesome stuff. You did clinics in, I think, 60 different countries. But talk to me about being the first Western drummer to do clinics in China, if I'm correct.
Well, you really are. It was October of 1993, Joe. And as I started traveling, doing clinics nationally, and then that took me throughout Europe and Canada and then throughout the world, I had a request from the Chinese government. They contacted Sabian, which is a Canadian company, and they wanted to have me come by and perform and teach. And they wanted to bring a Western drummer into China to begin teaching in 1993. And it was very, very exciting to go by there because at the time in 1993, China was not anywhere near as open as it is now. And I've gone back to China 2 or 3 times every year since then. As a matter of fact, I'll go to China 3 times this year. I'm there in May with Weckel. I go back in July with Alex Acuna, and I go back in August, I think, with Greg Bissonette and Russ Miller.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty amazing. But going there the first time was exciting because I was the first one to go there to begin to teach and set up educational programs. And I eventually met a young student of mine by the name of Mr. Lee. He's a wonderful young player, and now he's about 48 years old. In the past 12 years, he started a school called 9 Beats School in China, and there are now over 300 drum schools in over 200 cities. He's got 2,500 teachers and over 60,000 students. So I've helped him build this school. It's completely out of control. It's unbelievable.
Wow. and you had a big part of that, and just tremendous stuff. You just talked about doing clinics and stuff. What do you think about certain drummers? If they, I see certain drummers that are great players, but they don't always, transfer well to talking. What is it about Dom Famularo that it just comes natural, brother? You're just a pro at it. What was it that first started you? You said to yourself, you know what? I can play the drums, but I'm passionate. What made you want to start talking?
Boy, Joe, I can't believe it. It's a great question. I can't believe you asked that because that was just literally this afternoon. I had told the story to someone else that asked me the same question. Where did it start for me as far as how I realized that speaking was going to be equally as important as performing? I was 18 years old, and I was performing with a band here on Long Island, and the female singer, this wonderful singer, was also a music therapist, and she worked at a blind school in New York City. And she said to me on a gig one day, she goes, boy, Dom, I love the way you play, and I've got a lot of clients that are blind, and they'd love to hear some drumming. Is there any chance you can come in and play for my clients? And I said, boy, you call them clients as opposed to students. And she says, yeah, well, they're anywhere from the age of 15 to 50. So they're not really students, but we bring them into the school, and we teach them, and we try to expose them to different things, but they're all totally blind. And she goes, and many of them have other challenges on top of being blind. Some of them have autism. Some of them are challenged where they're disabled with wheelchairs. So I said, boy, I'd love to come by. I don't want any money for this. Let's just do this. I'll come in and fire up the kids. Mm-hmm. So I load my drums in the car. I get a student of mine to help out. We drive into New York City from Long Island, the hour drive. We get there. We set up. And all these clients came in, and there were about 300 of them that came in, and they sat in a semicircle around me on the floor. And all the teachers of these students, there were about 7 or 8 teachers of these students, were sitting in the back of the table in the back of the room. And I had my drum set set up, and I realized when they all came in, they were sitting down. They had never seen a drum set, so I had to kind of explain the parts of the drum set and take some of the drums off and pass around my 10-inch tom-tom so they can kind of hit it and hear what it's like. And then I passed around a couple of my cymbals, my small splash, my China cymbal. They had to kind of touch this stuff to kind of at least understand the sound that would come out of it. Then I put the drums back together again, and I said, let me just play for you. And an interesting thing happened, because when I played for him, Joe, they like mostly when I'm playing for a crowd, it's when you go for the double bass stuff and you're just killing the cymbals, that's when the crowd goes to their feet. They go to their feet and they're excited about that. This crowd was completely opposite. The softer I played and the more delicate I played, the more excited they got. So my solo changed. So instead of me now playing all of this fancy double bass crazy stuff, I was playing more brushes, softer, hitting the edge of the cymbals and playing quieter stuff, and they were going absolutely insane. So I finished the solo with my brushes. I ting the cymbal. They go wild. I then begin to ask for questions. Now, a lot of the teachers in the back of the room would kind of look at me like, who the heck is this drummer coming in? What's this all about? All of a sudden, most of the kids raised their hand to ask a question. And I'm starting to answer questions, and it was interesting going back and forth. And there was one kid in the back of the room that had his hand up, that when I asked the other questions, everyone else put their hand down, except he kept holding his hand up. So I kind of asked a lot of different people. Then I saw this guy in the back with his hand up for like 20 minutes. So I finally looked at his name tag that he had on. I said, Johnny, you in the back. What? And he stopped, and as he started to ask his question, one of the teachers in the back of the room begins to cry. Huh. So he leans forward, Johnny, and he says, kind of stammering in his way, he goes, Dom, when you play a solo, do you plan out what you're playing, or do you play what you feel? And I said, gosh, Johnny, what a great question. At that time, the teacher starts crying hysterically, and they escort her out of the back of the room. Now I'm thinking, what the heck did I screw up here? Now I got a freaking crying teacher over here. So I said, Johnny, listen, that's a great question. That's a great question. I plan nothing. I just play what I feel and how the audience reacts. How you reacted made me play differently. So I thank you guys, because how you reacted brought something out of me that I just discovered something about myself.
Right.
The crowd applauds. They go crazy. I play again. Again, I played softer. They went crazy. As we finished, I thanked them all, and as they left, Joe, they had to all walk past me and touch my face. Remember, they're blind, so they have to touch your face to get to know you. So they all thanked me by touching my face and leaving. Now, 300 kids touching my face. My glasses were all smudged. My hair was all messed up. It was unbelievable. The last person finishes, and I turned to the girl that initially had talked to me. I said, listen, Jan, what did I do wrong? I got to go apologize to that teacher. She said, Dom, you did nothing wrong. She said, what's amazing is that child, Johnny, had not spoken a word for 2 years.
Wow.
So you moved him to speak, and that teacher was so moved by it, she couldn't handle the emotion of it. So that drive back to my house that day, I was completely quiet. And I just realized maybe there's something in there in speaking and talking and playing music that could be more powerful than me just being the drummer in a band.
Well,
and that was a point that set my career differently.
You know what it did, too, for me, Dom? It just told me when you were with these blind kids, we love drums, and drums is great, but there's more powerful things than even music sometimes, and these blind kids being there, it's just a shame. We do this I do this drum show now, and I'm talking to a legend, but we have to put things in perspective. We talk drums, we love drums, but these are blind kids. It just shows you how life could be so great and so unfair at the same time. And just a great story, Dom. Thank you so much for telling me that.
Well, and I believe that there are reasons on why we do certain things and situations that happen to us, and I believe we just have to be open with our heart and our mind, and be very open-minded to be able to absorb and be able to feel and live in the moment, to take in those messages that are sent to us and move forward with our life with those messages speaking loud and clear.
Great stuff. I got a couple more, Dom, before we let you go. Guys, we're talking to the great Dom Famularo. He's been so gracious to give us about 40 minutes. As my guest last week, you guys have sort of the same setup. Kenny Arno doesn't go 10-12 or 12-13. I think he goes 12-10. Tell me why Dom Famularo also used that small tom, like at the second rack tom, and when did you start that?
Well, there was a clinic I did with Billy Cobbin, and it was with Joe Hibbs, the gentleman that just passed away. Joe Hibbs was with Tom and Drums at the time,
right,
as I was, and Billy was back in the early 80s. And Billy and I, for Tom and Drums, we did several clinic tours, but this one clinic tour was 27 cities in 28 days throughout the U.S. Yeah. And it was pretty intense. And we got to one clinic late. The plane was late, and we rushed out, and there were about 1,500 people lining up to kind of hear us. So we were setting up our drums real fast. And Joe Hibbs was setting up Billy Cobbin's drums. I had another guy help me out with my drums. And when Joe put Billy's set together real fast, I mean, we were rushing insanely fast. Joe Hibbs put the drums reversed on Billy's drum set. He put the larger drums on the left, and he just kind of set them up real fast, just not realizing what he was doing. So Billy comes over, sees the drums set up with larger drums to the left going down to higher drums, and when Joe came in, Joe goes, "Oh my gosh, Billy, I'm sorry." And Billy said, "Joe, leave it. Just get the drums on, let the people in." So that day, Billy played unbelievable. Wow. He played, and it just the sound of his drums, it was so exciting. And he said, "I'm going to do that from now on." So I was totally influenced by it from Billy Cobbin. When Billy did it, I then realized I want to have a challenging sound that will make me think differently. So I started setting up 12, 10, 16, 14. And for me, it also worked out well because when my 12-inch tom is in the second position, if you set up 10, 12, I play a 22-inch bass drum. My 12-inch tom is much higher in position, and then I have to put my 10-inch drum even higher because I like them to kind of tear down. Mm-hmm. So when I reverse them and I put my 12 first and my 10 second, I can lower the drums down about 2 inches. And my rack toms are lower, and I can reach them much more comfortable. So that's kind of how it worked for me, the 12, 10, 16, 14, and Kenny and I started doing it many, many years ago, and I love it when I go to hear Kenny because Kenny plays it so well and adapts to the drums so well. I love it when I go to hear Cobbin, and I've been playing open-handed for the past 14 years. When I'm playing with my left hand on the hi-hat, it just allows me to have my right hand free to open up my kit to a whole other level of playing.
Dom Famularo, from Joe Gansas and everybody around my show, Around the Kit, we can't thank you enough, brother. We love you and love everything you do, and we will continue to follow your journey in drums in the drumming world. And I thank you so much, Dom.
Boy, Joe, thank you so much. You have done a great job of this. Around the Kid, this is an exciting show you're doing. You're tremendously giving a service of keeping the enthusiasm of drumming around. You're letting people like myself have a voice. If one person hears this and can be moved by the passion and the love that I have for drumming, and they can feel from that and they continue the art form, that is absolutely what the cycle is about. So, Joe, I thank you so much. Good luck, and keep me posted. Anytime you want to get together, let's do it for sure.
Dom, thank you so much, brother. Have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Good luck, Joe. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Wow. How do you say wow like enough times in life? Is wow, or just wow is wow. Thank you to the legend himself, Mr. Dom Famularo.